Om Yo Brahmanan Vidadati Purvam Yo Vaivedamscha Prahanohi Tasmai Tanha Deva Atmabuddhi Prakasha Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. That one indivisible, all-pervasive presence, out of which sprang the divine Trinity at the beginning of a cosmic cycle, and who vouchsafed the Vedas to Lord Brahma. Who is an eternal bridge to immortality, who is partless, faultless, actionless, and divine, who resembles fire that has consumed all its fuel. I go for refuge to that one Supreme Brahman, whose wondrous light turns the attention of mankind to the Atman, the indivisible self within. May that Brahman protect us, may that Brahman sustain us, and may that Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto us, peace be unto all. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Tat Sat. And we now course on with this series of teachings on non-duality, coming from the Avadhut, in that revealed scripture called Avadhuta Gita, a kind of companion scripture to Ashtavakra Samhita, which Krishna liked, maybe one of the only books he kept near him, we hear. And these scriptures and the way that these great seers like Ashtavakra and Avadhut express non-duality is very unique. So they've captured a place in the hearts of sincere seekers after freedom. And they've also found a prominent place in the darshanas of India and those who study scriptures, the Gyanis particularly, and the pundits and scholars. And we are entering into a fourth class on this series, I think, at this point. And we will have a break next week as we move to other climes to engage in teachings on the Darshana Upanishad, week after next in Portland, Oregon at our ashram there. More teachings about yoga that we find buried deep inside of these Upanishads. What a close relationship yoga and Vedanta have to each other, although they're listed as two of the 6 darshanas. It would appear that that makes them separate, but of course not the case in India with the way and she is, and the way beings are trained in religion and philosophy there to marry them necessarily instead of keeping them apart from each other, which is rather a tendency has dawned upon us here in the West in contemporary times particularly. Philosophy kind of, oh, let's put that in the colleges and then make money off it and use it to argue about things, and religion, let's put that in the churches. But as far as India is concerned, these are the 2 wings of the bird, philosophically speaking, and have to be married to one another, as Vivekananda explained so wonderfully, that bhakti, being a great path, has a tendency to move towards sentimentality, and also sometimes personality worship and ritualism. These three things are fine if left guided by philosophy, he says, which will make them true and straight to the point, make bhakti authentic, in other words. On the other end, if it's just a jnana path, then it becomes a bit dry, you see, and maybe too esoteric and abstruse for people. Although there are some people who just really love that, and then there are some people who just really like the feet of the Lord and the name of the Lord. So when you put these two together, the point is that you check each other out very nicely. And that's what the Avadhut is doing for us here in this stotram, calling it a chalisa because it's verse 3 through 40. Because the first two verses don't end with the refrain, Jnanamritam samarasam gagono pamoham. The third verse of chapter 3 ends that way, and then the rest of the 40 after that, up through 43 or 42, would be all end with that refrain. So that's why we've culled those out, put them into a 40 verse, which is called a chalisa. Like there are different chalisas in India that you chant and sing. And then you have readily available for yourself this endearing devotion that Avadhut has. He was that one, remember, that had 24 teachers in nature. So he wasn't an ascetic or a non-dualist that would negate everything and walk away. He did know that there was a presence of the negator in him. So he could check in with that and therefore turn all of relativity into reality, transform Maya into Brahman, transform the poison of passions and fetters and various classes and problems into the nectar of non-dual reality, non-dual truth, nectar of non-dual truth. The name of our magazine here at SRV Loka. So he's the one that coined these wonderful phrases. And so if we enter into a fourth class in this series of his teachings, we've sung in the past 3 classes the first 7 or 8 slokas and looked into them. And I can flash it at you, although we have rather completed it. We could come back to it at the last class, what we were talking about, the Frankensteinian philosophy that unfortunately many of us are holding in the West nowadays. And that we want to give up this idea that there's a God separate from us and that it's creating everything out of nothing. And in other words, we came up with a nice word for that in English, didn't we? The Sanskrit's Ajativada. I mean, notice the title, Ajativada and the myth of creation. I don't know if I accented that very much in the first 3 classes. The actual title of the chart, Ajati, means birthless or unoriginated, as we were saying. It doesn't have a beginning. It's always present. And the myth of creation is what we're thinking about in terms of there was once a beginning and then there'll be an end. It's sort of like our birth and our death. We're taking that to be real. But the Avadhut says there, you see, I am acreate, distinct from all worlds projected by the mind. That one statement out of his beautiful chalisa here, the Avadhuta Gita, has those 2 or 3 main points of Advaita Vedanta contained in it. Because at the end he says, I am acreate, free from all the worlds. And then he adds, that are created by the mind. So he's not saying that we're created by God. So we throw these terms around rather loosely in a religion that's more dual and that needs to be checked by that non-dual philosophy. So these are the kind of affirmations that you find, for instance, in the Mahavākyas, the great statements of India. Tatvamasi, aham brahmasmi.
And Ayamatma Brahma, that even sounds like English, but Ayamatma means this, that I am, this self is I. I am Brahman. And then Prajnanam Brahman, pure conscious awareness or pure intelligence, that I am. So he's saying that at the end of each of one of these phrases, these verses we looked into. So we went ahead and had our philosophical way with these first 8 verses, you see. And then we want to take up today, and I should get right to it, now that we've reacquainted ourselves with the difference between unorigination and the myth of creation. We've paired those off, set those off against each other, one being a rather Frankensteinian philosophy and the other being this non-dual Advaita Vedanta that we want to learn from Mother India and make it prominent in our lives. We want to be able to think this way, not think in terms of separation, not think in terms of superstitions and myths that aren't true, not think in terms of imagining things that are changing constantly to be real, because the real never changes. And it's not destructible, it's akshara, and it's ajati, unoriginated. So if we have these words in our mind, then Advaita Vedanta becomes a lot easier for us to understand and comprehend, because we've heard that the truth is simple. And of course, people who have not yet looked into yoga and Vedanta and Advaita and so forth probably can't say that with any truth, see, with any veracity or realization behind it, because we know that the truth is very profound in these systems, and that you'll go very deep into finding out everything that's not real. Asat vidyate, bhavo bhavo vidyate sataha. You come to know the difference, as Krishna says, between asat, what doesn't exist or what's not real, and what's sat, what's true. And you come to know both of these, so that you do make a separation process at first, and then you adhere to the one that is the chosen. So talk about the chosen people. The chosen people is any people who choose the right religion. And the right religion is non-duality. According to the seers of non-duality, there's nothing to compare. Qualified non-dualism, dualism, fundamentalism, of course, worldliness. None of those can compare. The world can't compete, in other words, because most of the people are following the religion of the world, which right now is the religion of science, matter, physics. So none of those can compete. From that one religion that has the most adherents, materialism, on through to dualism, that is, people who are going to church or temple and singing and doing rituals and so forth, thinking that there's a difference between worshiping the personality instead of the principle of truth. And then on up to qualified non-dualism, where you're getting the Dharma and the teachings very well, thank you very much, and that's beginning to clarify my mind. But my mind should have never been unclear in the first place, and the original mind never is unclear. OM, original mind, that is the word, that is the Hiranyagarbha, that is the Sutradhara in everything, the essence in everything. And so if you adhere to that, even if you take on bodies lifetime to lifetime, then you'll always come back into the body as a Jivan Mukta, as a living liberated soul. And so that's how we find some of these great beings. Avatars, rare. Prophets, rare. Messiahs, rare. Buddhas, rare. But the rest of everyone, the rest of us all, we're trying just to gain just enlightenment, freedom from ignorance. And that's going to be enough for us. And these other souls are the exemplars of that. And so that's why we look to them. But they come very seldom. You got to get a ticket to that steamliner that comes every 500 years and get a reservation on that ship early, lifetimes ago, so you can be here like Brahmananda, Shivam Shantam Premarupam Niranjanam Yogi Shamadbhutam, Akanda Dvaita Lakshanam, all those 16 disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, or the 12 apostles of Jesus, they'll come and go with that great soul. and be close in proximity and holy company with that great soul. And the Avadhut also has done that, and then has come back and written this encomium about truth, about all the methods that go with the truth, and how to see them from the highest standpoint, philosophical perspective. So there's where your philosophy comes into the picture and helps your religion remain on track. So it doesn't fall into superstition, the myth of creation. It declares, I may create, and so are you. Some of these verses he said, I'm indivisible like the sky, like the ether. And others he says, you are indivisible like the sky, like the ether, using metaphors in nature to convince you that I and my Father are one, and be thee perfect as thy Father in heaven is perfect as well, if you want to put it that way. So he goes on with this kind of beautiful discourse. These great souls are discoursing to themselves in their own mind all the time. It's like the Divine Mother of Wisdom is there speaking to them all the time. So do you hear voices? They might put you commit you to an asylum. But there's the asylum of the wise. They're always hearing one particular voice inside of them. And that's the voice of the Divine Mother informing them of this truth. And they'll take it and hear it, and they'll sing it back to you, like we have been doing here. Let's sing 2 or 3 of these verses that we're going to study this week in the 4th class. Samvidi sarva karanani namo nibhascha samvidi sarva vishayam nanamo nibhascha samvidi chaikam amalam nahi bandha muktam Jnanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham nishkarma karma dahano jvalano bhavami nirdukkha dukkha dahano jvalano bhavami Nirdeho deha dahano javano bhavani Jnanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham Nispapa papa dahano hihuta shanoham Nirdharma dharma dahano hihuto shanoham Nirbandha bandha dahano hihuta shanoham Jnanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham Nirbandha bandha dahano hihuto shanoham Jnanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham Beautifully put, and the English translation is very intriguing. Basically, it's this contrast that we're talking about in Advaita between creation and non-creation. Basically, in this verse that we sang last week, remember, he was talking about near Bodha, and he's talking about Lakshana. And it came out to be that he's trying to get you to understand that the true I, when he's talking about the Atman, that self that he is, that indivisible self, we should say, is not hard to conceive of, and it's not hidden. So it's not that it's imperceptible, even to the senses, he says. I am not inscrutable nor inaccessible to the intellect. I am neither imperceptible nor inaccessible to your perception. So he's taking away these two sides of the coin that people would think about. Oh, and we've all thought about this. Oh, God cannot be comprehended, you hear in the scriptures. And then on the other side, God is everywhere. So how do you solve these kinds of contrasts when you get into the teachings of yoga and Vedanta and start studying yourself, and you begin to query in Atmavichara style about that? How do you solve something like that? Then you find Sri Ramakrishna coming along and saying something like, yes, God cannot be perceived by the ordinary mind. That's what the scriptures mean. But it can be perceived by the pure mind. And so you're back to this qualified non-dual teaching that there's these veils in front of your true self, but that the true self never changes. As we stopped last week, we went into the 5 different misconceptions or delusions that the goddess Annapurna told Nidaka when he had a vision of her after meditating on her for decades, maybe lifetimes. And so that's how you solve something like this. You see, well, there's a beam in my eye. It comes to mind. There might be a splinter in yours, but there's a beam in mine. So I have to remove both of those, splinter and the beam. The mote of dust, sometimes they say that in Christianity. I can't see very well because of this mote of dust in my eye. So remove that before you try and remove the false perception. Remove that in others before you try and remove the perception, their imperceptions. But first, remove the beam from your own eye. Like there's a whole piece of wood in there, not just a mote of dust. So in this way, you come to know that there's this fine distinction, and that when people go to solve problems, they'll go to one side or the other. But to take both and transcend them is what you do in the case of non-duality, because everything that you see, taste, touch, hear, and smell is changing, and so the eye you're seeing with is changing constantly, and the mind you're thinking with is changing constantly. So you're going to have to propose the solution out front to the mind so that it can get the idea that it's dual by nature, and then it has to transcend its own duality. So as I was just saying, you have to begin to think in non-dual terms. So he begins to pair that up then with, and I'll read what we just sang. I'll read the English out front for you, because it's very beautiful. I am the fire of knowledge which consumes all the actions of the actionless Atman. I am the fire of knowledge that destroys all sorrows of the sorrowless Atman. I am that fire of knowledge which burns up all the bodies of the bodiless Atman. If you don't get it yet, then I'm going to tell you, I am pure existence, knowledge, and bliss, as boundless as the sky, boundless like space. You see. So here's how people are living in the idea of ignorance. I'm ignorant. They're living in the idea of I'm a sinner. They're living in the idea that I cannot get over my depression, my sorrows. See, and so the natural thing for the fire-darting reformer to do, or the natural thing for the therapist to do, or for your parents or your friends to do, would be to try and move you over to the positive side of things in the way that they understand it. And then find out that this is a conventional method that just backfires eventually, and you go back to sorrow again. You go back to ignorance again. And you go back to this idea that you're the body again. So these are all beautiful phrases in there. So in my own version of this, I was reading the commentator here, the Swami's commentator, I put it, I am the fire of living intelligence that consumes the activities of the actionless Atman. I am the fire of non-dual wisdom that removes the sorrows of the sorrowless Atman. I am the non-dual wisdom that dissolves all the bodies of the bodiless Atman. I am pure existence, wisdom, and bliss, boundless as sky, infinite like space. He doesn't let you rest there. He goes on right away in the same vein. I am the fire of non-dual wisdom that eradicates the sins of the sinless Atman. I am the fire of non-dual wisdom that renders extinct the attributes of the attributeless Brahman or Atman. I am the fire of non-dual wisdom that strikes off the bonds of the unbound Atman. I am pure existence, wisdom, and bliss, as boundless as the sky, infinite like space. So he's not going to let you sit with either of these false suppositions. And he's not going to just also pose you a conventional solution that will temporarily get you thinking differently. The non-duality is supreme. It has to be taken on. You have to accept it as the truth, and then you have to live with it, just like you would with anything that you need to practice or get used to. And so he's giving us these very powerful dualities, these contradictions in life, and pitting them against each other like one black rock against another, and smashing them both together, and concluding every time, Jnanamritam, I'm the knowledge, I am the nectar Amritan of highest wisdom, of this Advaitic wisdom. Boundless as the sky, infinite light space. So no boundaries, no barriers, no delimitations, no compartmentalizations. And those all exist in the mind and in the intellect and the ego, and in the senses and in the body. We were talking about land management this morning, you see. We'll have to manage the land, you see, here in Hawaii, so we can live on it. But then there's, in spirituality, first thing is management of how you deal with the body. Next level is how you deal with the senses and their objects. Next level is how you deal with your thinking mind. Next level is how you deal with this intellect that wants to be satisfied. Intellect's very voracious. And then the best way to deal with it all is to hear this wisdom out front. See, I'm not difficult for the intellect to comprehend. Somebody told you that? I'm not. I'm not imperceptible to the senses. I'm very easy to see, actually. So, and so these ways that people are thinking in terms of dualities is going to have to move aside for this non-dual truth, see? So that it's going to take the fore, and you're going to start thinking like that, living in that, like the Avadhut's doing. And so checking in with a non-dual philosophy is very important. Let's do that first before I show you something about the fire of knowledge that burns all the impurities of the ever pure Atman. These beautiful statements that we're hearing from him. He's been thinking about this a long time, then he's realized it. So let's just look at these 5 delusions that we looked at last time, because I want to put them across the board with these 5 essential facts of Advaita. First, we found out that, and I'll go through these quickly, just try and keep them in mind, that the first delusion of people is that Brahman and the jiva, that is God and the soul, are different. They're two. So that's the first delusion people are born with. Just dual. It's just duality. They're living in duality. Some beings don't even believe in God, so that duality doesn't yet present itself to them. That's the 7 lower realms of ignorance you're talking about, people are born into. But there's 7 upper levels of knowledge too. Some people are born into those. The beautiful teaching that you'll find a chart on that in our Footfalls of the Indian Rishis book, is that how to be born again into these higher levels of knowledge all the time. And when you look around here, when you come here, you see that there are beings that don't even believe in God. So they've been born into the 7 lower levels of ignorance. Because God isn't hard to see. It's not imperceptible to the mind, to the senses. The body also is God walking around on 2 legs, if you ask Vivekananda. So then, why have we fallen into this idea that God doesn't exist? I heard that today from a speaker. It says, Buddhism doesn't believe in God. It was the only thing in his whole talk that I didn't agree with. But whatever the case, that's an obvious fact to India. So if you were in possession of faith of any kind and you were born into a body and you started thinking yourself to be separate from God, and religion started to accent that line of demarcation between God and mankind, then there would be the first delusion sets in to the collective mind of humanity. Your ancestors are going to take that with them to their graves and be reborn with it. And this is going to go on for centuries now, maybe for an age. And so you have a chance with the coming of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda to blast that apart. And the Avadhut's giving you this permission to do so in this way of taking on non-dual reality and making it your mead, your philosophy. This is the way I think and live. At the end of his life, our founder, Lexixon, peace and blessed be upon him, told me there are many better things to be than a human being, and many higher ways to think than the people of this world are thinking in. So this is something that you make into your own philosophy, and you cut your own path with it. And this is why every thumbprint is different. Every soul has its own way to God. Every soul is its own expression of God, unique to itself. And Avadhut is just simply one of those that's realized it in a very high way through this beautiful philosophy. The second delusion that comes in is that causes the misconception that the sense of agency dwelling in the self is real. Not of myself do I do, says Sri Ramakrishna. My teacher Swami Sheshananda said that too. He said, if you meet people in the West, in America, he said, they come up to you and they stick out their hand and they say, how do you do? And the ego immediately says, I do everything. But the Atman remains silent, he said. It knows nothing, does nothing. There's nothing to do. So the Atman is silent in the face of the ego's statement that it's the doer of everything. So that's the beginning of arrogance and the end of humility. So the Atman stands back looking at that. It's silent. The Atman never says, I do anything or I do nothing. Either one. See? Third, that's a delusion that comes into people's minds, foisted on them by ahamkara, the ego, the unripe ego. The third, as we looked at last week, as I go through these quickly, consists of thinking the jiva associated with the 3 bodies has any real attachment at all. There's no attachment in you whatsoever. I'm quoting from this chalisa again. I could turn to the page and sing you the verse, but we'll wait for a few weeks for that. I said, there's really no attachment in you whatsoever, he tells you. And then at the same time, he says, why are you crying tears on your own divine feet? Why are you crying tears of sorrow on your own divine feet? You are pure knowledge, existence, and bliss, absolute, like the sky, like the ether. So in this way, he takes away that foundation of the ego-mind mechanism to get attached to the bodies of the bodiless Atman, if you want to say that. Fourth delusion, because remember, this is what the goddess told the seer. when he had meditated on her long enough, he came there, what do you want? And she said, I want Jivan Mukta, I want freedom. Then here, take instead these 5 delusions and think about them. Because if you understand these and you can get over these 5 delusions, then you'll realize your freedom. You'll realize that you've always been free. So the 4th one is, concerns the falsehood that immutable Brahman goes through changes. Immutable means changeless, right? So beings are looking at things, thinking that Brahman goes through changes, instead of leaving Brahman where it should be, in non-dual perfection, changelessness. But they're taking it and they're bringing it down. So Vivekananda said, don't touch anything uncanny, not even with your toes. Leave all these things out here alone, and don't bring Brahman down into them. That's trying to bring something that's unchanging into the changing. And then you'll start believing in fantastic, unbelievable things. Your religion will do so, your scientists will do so, your philosophers will do so. Instead, try and take all of this and bring it up to changelessness, where it came from. So I am the fire of changelessness that destroys all the change in the changeless Atman. You can start making up your own verses with each one of these Advaitic principles, so that you can play the 2 off against each other, and they'll go away and leave you alone, and just leave you in the peace that passes all understanding. Leave you in that eternal reality that is your true nature. And quit contradicting themselves inside of your head. The 5th thing she told him was, with self-realization in the mind, the 5th delusion falsely attributes reality to the world as separate from Brahman. So then we're going to have to come to see that non-duality is all-inclusive. It doesn't exclude anything. And we'll find out that that's also the way that you deal with your sufferings, say in yoga. So you have to face off against yoga. And in Buddhism and Vedanta, you have to face off against your own ignorance. You yourself have to disprove those things as being unreal, untrue, so that they won't pose a separation for you anymore. And then, as Sri Ramakrishna said, the final word in spiritual life here on this earth is seeing God in everything. Well, that's why there's devils and wrathful deities in the religions, so that you can see them and see through them. See that that's all just a machination of the mind in Maya too, but that Brahman's underlying it all. Take away the mind and see Brahman, because the mind is vibrating, and see the vibrationless Brahman and everything. Or if the mind is still there vibrating, you still know, because you've proven it to yourself, that Brahman is unchanging, immutable. So whatever the case, whatever the mind's conjuring up at the moment, doesn't affect the non-dualist. So in terms of agency, a very beautiful sloka in the Upanishads, one of those minor Upanishads we're talking about, it says, I only know that I do nothing, that as far as what gets done, it's only God, or there's some karma lurking in there. That's what the sloka says. I attribute it all to the presence of God or karma. So he'll default to one of those 2 positions. And as long as karma's there, well, then he's saying, isn't he, here, I'm the fire of living intelligence that destroys the karma of the karmaless Atman. He's not attributing that karma that's happening in his mind to be a real thing, and then positing on top of a deity like a devil or a god, that's causing him to lose his non-dual perspective. Just because you see it doesn't mean it is. That's called false appearances. running through this because we finished off with it in the last class, just so that it reminds us of 5 great delusions that we can do away with right away in order to understand, for instance, ajati, how we are birthless, deathless, and unoriginated. And by the way, how everything is that too. That's the all-inclusiveness of the Advaita. It's not just you and your soul that you have to take care of, not to make these false assumptions about, but all things. Why are you causing things to be at the, blaming things, causing them to be at fault for everything, as people tend to do? Well, those things are the reason why I'm not realized or why I'm suffering. But you must know that all of these are unoriginated, rising and falling constantly. Now, if you take this and look at it in a less personal way, as delivered as a transmission from the goddess to a refined knower of Advaita, then it would look like this chart that we've taken up before. Basically comes from the ancient Samkhya tradition, a lot of it, of the Purusha and Prakriti, soul and nature, and how to handle that. So basically you can see here, number 1, the soul Atman is different from and ever free of nature. So that would be how you would first separate the wheat from the chaff. Call that viveka, our tradition, as a practice. At the same time, all of nature has come out of the soul, but as it does so, the Atman never changes. There's no change to the soul. It's like things going into an ocean, but the ocean not changing. So many things can pour into the ocean and can also be emptied out of the ocean, and the ocean just remains the same. So Brahman is like that. That's the all-inclusiveness of it all again. And if you take these 5 together as one meditation, is what you want to do after you hear them. Number 3 is, as nature emerges from the soul, it does so as mental projection rather than actual creation. Well, that's right in line with what we're talking about, isn't it? Ajati and the myth of creation. So when you see things, when things appear to you in a form or in a series of forms, or when things happen to you in an experience or or a sequence of experiences, then you're to look at that and say that's rising from the mind. And it's not coming into being from nothing. It's a projection that the mind itself is causing via its power to vibrate. And that vibration can just as soon die away. And neither the appearance of the vibration nor the disappearance of the vibration will change me, because has 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years of waking and dreaming and deep sleep changed you at all? You're still the same person. There's nothing waking, dreaming, and deep sleep can do to teach you. And of course, in the waking state, that's where people have to measure that. They think they're growing, but growth is one of the 6 transformations, and transformations don't happen in Brahman. So how can your soul learn anything? How can it grow when it is Brahman? See? So you must be remembering it again, or searching for it somewhere and recalling it. Something you lost that you're regaining. It's not something that, like your soul, that you can lose it, like an object in the forest. Man loses a diamond in the forest, gets home, sees that he's lost the most precious thing that he owned, goes back to the forest and looks days for it till finally finds it, holds it again, grasps it to his heart, and feels complete. That's a song in India about losing a person thinking that they lost their soul. And when they finally found it again, they felt absolutely 100% complete in themselves again. So that was all a process of losing and finding. But the thing existed the whole time, didn't it? The diamond was the reality to you. and you gave up everything to find it, and you'll probably give up everything never to lose it again too, once you find it. Suffering has that ability to teach people. So everything you see, taste, touch, hear, and smell, everything you think, all the experiences you have, they're arising from the mind, and they're all mental projections. They're not new creations. People are thinking that way in terms of inventions too. I invented this, but they're just recalling something that was back in the mind ages ago and coming forth again. Mother reveals it and they see it. So this is back to agency, right? Back to agency and non-agency. Should never fall into that misconception that anything is created for any other reason. Philosophically, it's true, but also for the fact that it will create a sense of agency in you. And that won't be a good thing. Your ego will get a hold of the invention and use it for various things, like violence and domination and fame and money and so forth. The fourth essential fact here then is that the soul has an eternal relationship with nature. If it identifies with nature, there is suffering. But if it only associates with nature, it can sport freely. So you can see the practical beauty of one point after another, that it's just saying only the soul is true. But the soul, the changes that take place don't affect the soul. Number three, when nature emerges from the soul, it does so as a vibration, not as a creation. Number four, the soul has an eternal relationship with nature, so you can throw away that hope or that fear, whatever the case may be, is that you can get rid of nature somehow. That's part of you. And you're just not seeing it as God. So you're not seeing that Purusha and Prakriti have an eternal relationship with each other. In Samkhya or in Tantra, that Shiva and Shakti have an eternal relationship with one another. They're the two that are always one. They appear as two, but they're ever one. And so this will become a fact for you for multiplicity too, for diversity. And if you're going that way with Advaita at the hub of everything, then that's called illumination. If you're going that way without Advaita at the hub of things, that's called fragmented mind. And you wander the three worlds without ever connecting everything back to that oneness. That's what the Rishi Pipalada said. They wander the three worlds if they don't connect the three mantras of Om, A-U-M. This projection, sustenance, and withdrawal. If you don't know that all of that's happening like a tempest in a teapot cup inside of your own mind, and that you're the witness of that, then you haven't connected to the truth yet. You're leaving everything fragmented. And so that kind of mind we're seeing, that's the result in billions of people that are unhappy, that are malcontent, that are depressed, that are suffering, that are never getting fulfilled or satisfied in their life. And are constantly then warring with each other and doing violence to each other, or are helpless to help anyone. All of that is a result of fragmented mind, and that is a result of not connecting everything back to these Advaitic facts. This is your faith now. Others might have their beliefs, Gaudapada says, like the dualists and the fundamentalists, but we have our facts. And we based our whole existence upon that because existence is non-dual. They're coming at it from the standpoint that existence is dual. Many, isn't it? Doesn't everyone believe that? Does everyone run to nature for variety and believe that it's true and real? But the Advaitists don't do that. Probably the qualified Advaitists are refraining from doing that anymore, you see. Well, I think I'll shift my position here now that I've got these kernels of wisdom from my guru, Peace and blessings be upon him. Man came to me from a land that never sleeps. Now all my dreams have become radiant meditations. I don't dream anymore. I envision the truth, and the truth comes to me. Now I think I'll write a song about it, maybe 40 verses. I'll try and explain that realization that I had to people so that they might get inspired too to adopt this non-dual perspective. At least first adopt it. Try it on like a coat. And so a quick run through those four just to tell you how they connect together nicely. Number 5 says, nature has manifested and unmanifested sides by which knowing the soul can remain free of cycles of birth and death and ignorance. So it's very beautiful because you're heading towards what people are suffering from, nature. And as you head toward the fact that name and form and time and space, Maya, nature, Prakriti, is what people are attached to, and that's what's causing the suffering, Advaita proves to you that there's no difference from nature. You see, it comes out of you. It can't be different from you because it comes out of you. So you're not putting it off somewhere, either to renounce it, nor to glom onto it and attach to it. Like I'm the body kind of attachment. That's in nature, right? So this is why Krishna says in the Gita, all activity takes place in nature, not in you, Arjuna. He's on the field of battle. You can't get more active than that in a very dire and desperate way. So this is a very amazing thing to hear. He's going to be stunned. And as the song gets sung, the Gita chapters go forth, pretty soon Arjuna is going, you've returned me to my senses again, to my higher intelligence. Thank you. I now hear you, and I will fight. Yeah, I will go forth. Fight the ignorance that caused me to fall on my knees in front of worthless things, changing things, empty things. So I'd like, first time I got a chance to put these two charts side by side, how the goddess talks about 5 things that are Advaitic facts coming to you as delusions, that is what veils them. And then how this beautiful philosophy that takes the two and makes it into one proceeds in its philosophical way. Now let's look at these verses specifically in terms of fire. So he says here again, now that we've sung it, I am the fire of living intelligence that consumes the activities of the activeless Atman. I am the fire of nondual wisdom that removes the sorrows of the sorrowless Atman. I am the nondual wisdom that dissolves all the bodies of the bodiless Atman. And quick, before we lose the train of that, I am the fire of non-dual wisdom that eradicates the sin of the sinless Atman. I am the fire of non-dual wisdom that renders extinct the attributes, qualities, that is, of the qualityless or attributeless Atman. And the fire of non-dual truth that strikes off the bonds of the unbound Atman. So take the last one, bondage and liberation, one of the highest and subtlest of all dualities. People are thinking, I'm bound, I'm bound. I'm bound to my job, bound to my family, I'm bound to nature, I'm bound to sorrow and depression. But he's coming along, isn't he, and pointing you out that none of these things are true. If you're bound to them, you're bound to nothingness. You see, why are you doing that to yourself? And probably the best one there to explain this to us is I am the fire of non-dual wisdom that strikes off the bonds of the unbound Atman. So you took the Atman, you saw it in the original, it was completely free. Then you decided that it had bondages in it. And then you subjected yourself to those bondages and you put it away somewhere. See? So basically, you're taking something that's ever free, never bound, and binding it with your own ideas, your own conceptions, or in this case, misconceptions. And this is done by people unknowingly who are living in avidya, ignorance of the true self. And it's also done by very astute intellectuals that are delimiting things like the intellect and placing things in them. Instead of leaving them wide open and all pervasive and all containing, then these false superimpositions come along and get placed over them by so many sectors of thinkers and non-thinkers. Unless you want to call it the non-thinker being uppercase non-thinking. These are beings that realize that the whole thing has come from a thought, and the thought is in them, as we go back to the last chart, and that they can. It's not easy. It's not hard for them to do away with the thought. See what here. Yeah, the verse we'll take next week, actually. O precious one, I am neither distinct from reality nor brought into union with it. I am not invested with the mind, nor am I devoid of mind. Do you see? Thought belongs to me, and I am free of it as well. And then he ends, I am pure existence, wisdom, and bliss, boundless as the sky, infinite like space. So is there in that verse, which we'll get to in the next class of this series, he's taking up the mind and showing you what it is. It's like the mind can't hide anymore in its various machinations, its projections, and its false superpositions, and the conditionings that it's taken on. See, it can't hide from the all-seeing third eye or the Atman. And so he's making it very clear there. Don't you see, thought belongs to me, but I'm free of it as well. So he can turn on the thought and turn off the thought because it's in the mind. It's just like you had a remote control, see? And you were next door and your TV was on. You go like this. Or say, you got out of your car and forgot to lock it, right? And so you're in the house and you think, oh, I didn't lock my car. So you just take out the remote control and you hear it beep out there. So you know it's locked. So that's what the Avadhut can do with his mind and his thoughts. It can just turn them off and turn them on. He's saying so right there. And so none of these things are going to trouble him anymore. He's a complete master of all the realms of name and form and time and space. He started off doing that by sitting like this. So the Darshan Upanishad will tell us next week, or week after next when we have the class on it, is that if asana really means mastering the three realms. So if you can sit like this for any given length of time, then what that really translates into is that Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha have all been mastered by you. You're stable. It just kind of boils down to you're stable, nothing can move you anymore. And guess what else doesn't move? Brahman. So you have become Brahman. You have become like Brahman by not moving. And so people are walking around like this, and they're getting into different positions. They're running, they're jogging, they're swimming, they're doing all these things. The seer sits down and just does this. And that's true asana right there. Ekasana, it's called by the non-dualists. And if you master that posture and you can just stay in it, you see, and you're content and so forth, you've mastered the three worlds. The other four inside of you can come later, but now you can get to them because you're stable in one position. And it's so symbolic of what has to happen with the manasana, right? Talk about the physical asanas and the body and so forth, but a mind has a lot of different positions it can take. Philosophically, we're going through some of them, but basically it can also take on a lot of unhealthy, unnecessary perspectives. that bind it down. And then you won't be able to say, I can turn off the thoughts. Then the thoughts are running constantly in you. You can't turn them on, even at night when you want to sleep. Or you try and, use a chemical or a drug or something to calm them down. That Samanek Samadhi, we used to laugh about that. You try and use some sort of sleeping pill to get yourself quiet, instead of the posture and the perspective. You see, posture and perspective, body and mind connection. So what is this fire and this flame that he's on about? These great seers are on about. Avadhut is now bringing it forward. I'm the fire of living intelligence. I'm the fire of non-dual wisdom. I am the fire of essential existence. I'm the fire of direct experience. These are things that, phrases that are common to him, to them. And he's not bringing them up just for pretty words, but he's trying to explain this positionless position, if you would, this thoughtless mind, this transcendent reality that he is living in day by day, minute by minute, and that he will never let go of it. It's in fact yet impossible to let go of it, because he is that thou art. So beings have been talking about this for aeons. These great souls have been talking about this, while others have gone on with their various perspectives in religion and philosophy. So Vivekananda said once, he has neither disease nor decay nor death, for verily he has obtained a body full of the fire of yoga. So this is the fire that burns away the sorrows of the sorrowless Atman. It's not fire that you'd light. That's just an example of an outer manifestation of that same fire. I just chanted that at the beginning of class, right? Brahman, it resembles the fire that consumes all its fuel. How can I describe Brahman? It's like I just saw ashes. I just saw fire. I put wood into it. The wood took on the form of the fire. Then it turned to ash, and the fire went away. It was inside the wood as its burning power. It came out, it burned it. Now it's back inside the idea of wood, because that was in the wood as burning power. So you could, looking from the outside, you say, I ignited it and I extinguished it. But this was Brahman all the time in the case. So the fire is a beautiful metaphor for that. So is camphor. I take burned camphor and it just leaves no trace anymore. So beautiful, Vivekananda talks about this. So you could see here some of the other quotes. The Kathopanishad says, I know that sacred fire which leads to heaven and beyond. Listen. The fire which is the means of attaining the infinite worlds and is also their foundation, it is hidden in the sacred place of the heart. So this is the fire in the heart, or this Atman, how it burns away everything as truth. Vivekananda goes on saying, the fire of yoga burns the cage of sin that is around a man. So go back to what we were just saying. I am the fire that burns the sins of the sinless action, Atman, right? So here's the exact, Swami Vivekananda is saying the exact same thing, describing what the fire of yoga does for an aspiring soul. It's right there as a realization as far as the Atman is concerned. In other words, he's identified with the fire of living intelligence, which has burned away the sins of an Atman that never had any sin. You see the beauty of it, but it's very subtle. So you can't go out of here or go home or go back to your life and say, I just can't get rid of the sins. The words of my teacher didn't do it. I'm still sinning, or I'm still a sinner, or I'm still sorrowful. I didn't get rid of my sorrow by hearing those words. But you have to place yourself in the shoes of the Avadhuta, or in the shoes of the Swami here, and know that this has been a realized fact in their case, based upon facts that are known to all of the realized souls. So he says that the fire of yoga burns the cage of sin that is around a man. Knowledge becomes purified, and nirvana is directly obtained. From yoga comes knowledge. Knowledge again helps the yogi. He who combines in himself both yoga and knowledge, with him the Lord is highly pleased. That almost sounds Christian, but there's Swami Vivekananda talking about this fire of yoga, this fire of living intelligence, and what it does to sin. As if, sin was just an usurper. It was kind of an odious presence. So if you have like garlic in a cup and you keep it there, garlic solution, and you wash the cup afterwards, still smell the garlic, the only thing that's going to take that smell away is just putting that back in the fire, and it'll burn all that tiny modicum, the ton matras of garlic solution that had adhered themselves to the outside of the clay cup, you see. And then you put it in the fire and those are burned away. You have to think of transgressions and sins and limitations and things like, that you're imagining to be real, to be gone as soon as they're subject to the fire of living intelligence, which is in you. Katha Upanishad, again, because we're taking two quotes on this chart from the Katha Upanishad because it talks so well about fire. It says, like the fetus well preserved by the pregnant mother, the omniscient fire hidden in fire sticks is worshipped day after day by awakened souls and wise sacrificers. Make of your lower self one stick and rub it against the stick of the higher self to produce illumination. So like fire and fire sticks, you hear that in several other Upanishads too, but the Katha Upanishad is allocating it directly here. You can see the incense sticks being offered in front of the altar, you see, by the hand of the worshiper. And how you're supposed to make an offering of this self, this individual self, is the lower fire stick, and you rub that against the higher stick, the higher fire stick of the illumined teacher and the revealed scriptures and so forth, and ignite yourself, and then you become a burning pillar. You see, which that's over here. If you set them off side by side, then you become a burning pillar yourself. And there's an actual meditation that was taught to us by Karmapa and Lama Wangchuk. Who's that? So so both of these verses, slokas 9 and 10, talk about this fire that we're trying to understand. Call it living intelligence. Vivekananda called it the fire of yoga, and he says, I can sit up in the Himalayas and live by this. In the cold, I can keep myself warm by the inner fire of this. And almost, just with a cloth around me in the scripture, he said, be perfectly content sitting there in the snows with this fire of yoga burning inside of me. So it's a very precious possession that they have, that they've set ablaze inside of themselves, like an inner fire that you have to ignite at some point inside of yourself, that burns away all these false superpositions, sorrows of an Atman that doesn't have any sorrow, the bodies of an Atman that doesn't have any bodies. See how it's working. Some points about it. When you break fire down, you can break it down into heat, flame, and fuel. So we just chanted at the beginning of class, Brahman is like that fire that's consumed all its fuel. So you got the fuel, you struck it, the fire came out, it burned, and then the ashes came and the fire went away. So it's a beautiful analogy that they're using for this fire of intelligence that burns away everything and then disappears back to its source, which is in the Atman. It's the fire of the Atman. It's a fire of consciousness. It's the flames of awareness, like a bonfire. So this heat from the fire that we're talking about here dispels limitations by the power inherent in words. That is, words of wisdom. I might add that in there because it's not doing much to people who are just talking. Don't see much change there. Not getting their limitations burnt away. This heat radiates as a vibration of focused awareness. So again, like we use that idea of, if you're at the muffler shop, and they tune in that laser. First it's a raw flame, you see. And then they tune it, and then it becomes just needle-like, and it cuts right through metal that way. It melts metal. So in that way, this heat is favored and only comes to the realized soul, makes them realized when they can focus concentration to that fine point. It heals the body, purifies prana, clarifies the mind, and hones the intellect. So it'll take everything, body, energy, and a fourfold mind. If you take the fire of yoga into that, then it'll burn away all the impositions or all the, what we're talking about here, sins and sorrows and ideas that I'm the body, ignorance. Burn all of those away in all levels of your being like that. After that, really all you have left is the witness. So we've been saying that a lot lately. If you can take care of the sitting position and master the Om, the 3 words, and get your prana flowing inward to psychic prana, and then the senses become purified in that process, and then the mind becomes clarified, and the witness, the ego diminishes, and the wisdom becomes honed. What else is there? There's no more purification that can happen, and what's left over from camphor and from fire, the ashes or the residue, is the witness of phenomena. So you've burned away everything that caused you to think the phenomena was true. You danced in the dance of phenomena. Now you're dancing in the dance of the noumenon, the opposite of the phenomenon. So you have withdrawn from everything that acted, everything that thought, everything that misthought, everything that misconceived, and everything that was an impurity that came out of the vibrations of the mind. So what else would there be left but I am boundless as the sky, infinite like space. I am what's left over after the fire consumes its fuel. And this is a profound experience that happens to them. Finally, this fire, as living intelligence, here's where we go to Mother, conducts consciousness into the primal spiritual centers. We'll talk about that at the retreat in 2 weekends or 3 weekends from now at Windward Waters, when we talk about awakening to Mother Kundalini. Oh, we've heard enough about how Mother Kundalini awakens in us, but actually we have to realize that she's ever awake and that we approach her to be awakened. So awakening to the presence of Mother Kundalini is the name of this retreat, and it has so many similarities to the Vedanta and the Upanishads, because one of those Upanishads is called the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad, and it talks about the centers. It really takes you up from, you start out piercing the center at the Manipura, You don't start at the bottom. You have to go through all of that. It means you're probably of a much higher intelligence than that in your past lifetime. So when you were born, you had this false superpositions of being connected to your family and your ancestors, but you weren't like your family, were you? See, you were totally different than your family, and they went the way of the world, and you went the way of the spirit. So that means you're starting here at the Manipura, as the Upanishad tells you to do, and piercing that granthi, that knot there, and then awakening to the heart, to the throat, and to the third eye, and then to the Sahasrara. This is how the Upanishads speak about Kundalini Shakti, with 5 centers, not 7. And really 4, because the Manipura is something that you are just using to get born with, see, the ancestors and families. And you're not going to earth and to heaven in rounds like samsara anymore. You just use that to get yourself born in the body so that you could use the body for spiritual practice, so that you could penetrate this Vishnu Granthi here and move inside like a free soul to the higher centers. And now you're free there, like the Avadhut's free. He's trying to tell you how he did that. And one of his realizations was fire. When we look at the Darshana Upanishad in 2 weeks in Portland, it's telling you that you have to take 5 things and place them in 5 centers in your body with 5 gods. It's just more beautiful quintuplication stuff that I've found in the Upanishads. And fire is one of those things that you take and you place it in the heart, and you say the bijam as you do that, and you worship the deity of fire there. So this is the way in which the Upanishad wants you to realize the truth of the Atman. So very beautiful that all of this is contained not only in systems like Tantra, but in the Vedic systems too. And this ceremony you're seeing going on here is all Vedic. There are plenty of tantric rituals, but these are Vedic things that you're seeing. In the remaining 5 or 10 minutes, let's at least look at let's complete this meditation on the tattva of fire. We looked at heat. How about the flame itself? The flame is like the personification, like the Avadhut, or like your guru, or like the acharya, or like the rishi. So these beings act as exemplars for enlightenment on earth, and importantly, in the body, because you would never believe that you could become spiritually if you are attached to the body. See, you couldn't believe in your own enlightenment. I'm just a body, see, and I was born, I'm growing, I got disease, I'm decaying and I'm dying, and all of this is going on all around you. Even when you're young, you're seeing people get old and die. So how is that going to translate into anything that's going to help you get enlightened? See, if it wasn't for an exemplar who was enlightened in the body, a Jivan Mukta. And so that's why you go to those souls in awe and in reverence, and bow down and worship in modesty, and then ask them for the truth. Pranipatena paripashyena upade, as Krishna says in the Gita, is that the soul approaches, the freedom-loving soul approaches the illumined soul and asks, with humility and prostration and service, and then asks for the highest truth. Sevaya upadekshanti te jnana jnaninas tattva darshana. I want darshan with that highest of all beings, who will share with me the darshan and the tattvas, all the principles. Krishna, of course, being one of the greatest examples of this flame. They show the spiritual aspirant the path leading to freedom. Hopefully you'll get on it and stay on it and walk it to its destination. That's what we're finding nowadays, is to get the Guru on the path is a cheap thing for some people now. And they can just throw it away quite easily and go back to the world without a thank you or by your leave or make no never mind. You see, I don't have to adhere to this old tradition and its old ways, or listen to these and understand the depths and the power of words. You see, it's inherent in the words of wisdom. That's how it's being carried here. That's how it's being stored here. Any kind of knowledge is being stored in words. Lower knowledge too is dependent upon words. And the words are dependent on thoughts. So the thoughts are in the mind. The mind has to be kept pure. And this is what's happening with the Avadhut. He's burnt away all those things with the fire, with this particular fire. So he sheds light upon the scriptures to reveal their timeless message, as we've seen that with Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda coming to us. You won't find religion anywhere other than in Sri Ramakrishna. Who said that? Sri Ramakrishna. What did he mean? In this age, you won't find that religion anywhere except in him. And you wouldn't find it anywhere in Jesus's life except in Jesus. That's why he said you get to the Father through the Son. You have to come to God through me, because he was the one that was giving it out in that age. And it was the same with Lord Buddha when he was alive. You couldn't find that truth anywhere in the world except in Buddha. And it was the same with Muhammad when he was living. They say the Quran says, he's the last of all the prophets. What does that mean? See, it means that he's the last of the Abrahamic tradition prophets. That's what that means. And there were plenty of people after him, great souls. They didn't have to be avatars. They could be messiahs, they could be messengers, they could be Buddhas, and they could be avatars. And those beings are carrying on the tradition. When they're on earth, you get to the Father, to God, through them. And this is, of course, the wide open universal way of looking at it, seeing it. It's Advaitic in its nature. And that's mostly become right here, clarifies the fact that Brahman is the only reality. So it's being taught to you by these different flames. You see, so all the flame here is about these individual souls which are emitting this heat of the fire of intelligence and the fire of yoga to us. We have to go near and warm ourselves. There was one elderly man who was a student of my teacher, sitting far away from my guru, and he happened to end up close to my guru one day. My guru turned and said, "If you want to get warm, you have to come near the fire," and got up and walked away. So from then on, this elderly man always stayed really close to Swami, because he knew what he meant. You can't stay far away from this heat of the flame of the realized soul and expect to stay warm in wisdom or even in devotion. You get close to that fire, because that's what melts the freezing effect of ignorance, Maya. Let's finish it off in the few minutes we've got, because we're not restricted exactly to the right every moment in this shorter class we give nowadays. There's the fuel. Funny what the fuel is. You'd think it was wisdom, but no, the fuel is everything that's not wisdom. Why would you want to burn wisdom? It's a wisdom that comes along and burns everything else, right? So that's the fuel you're adding to the fire, the wood, the coals, and so forth. Because it devours delusion, and ignorance like fire consumes wood. It exposes Maya like a forest fire lights up nocturnal skies. Have you been driving in forested areas at night? See the big glow in the distance, and there's helicopters dropping water and so forth. See, at night it's very, you know, there's a huge fire over there. So just like the fire lights up these nocturnal skies, which would otherwise be dark, this fuel that you're burning, that you're making an offering of your own ignorance, of your own limitations, because you know that you're acting, but your Atma is actionless, because you know that you're feeling sorrowful, but your Atman is sorrowless. You know that you're in a body, but you know that the Atman is bodiless. You see, there's the relative and there's the absolute. There's the appearance of things and there's the truth, and you know them both. And you've selected the right path, you see. You've found the teacher, he's revealed the path, and he's himself warmed himself with the heat of non-dual wisdom. And then aparavidya, even aparavidya, that is sciences, math, arithmetic, and various things that people use to make their living on, that gets turned into dry kindling. And that blazes the path to paravidya. So first start off offering all this ignorance into fire. And all these things that aren't, that you're hanging on to that aren't worthy of you. Like Vivekananda said, take everything in your mind that's an imposition. I want you to do this right now, he told the person. Put it in a bag, go throw it in the river. The river's out back of the temple there, go throw it in the river. And it's the same thing that the founder of SIV told me earlier. What do we do now that we've found Ramakrishna? So we just keep practicing and so forth and so on. No, now you've found Ramakrishna, think of everything in your mind that causes you to brood and burn it away, throw it away. It's unreal. You've found the truth. You've found the avatar. It's this lifetime that you've done this. Catch up. Catch up with your fact that you're an illumined soul. That there's nothing that can cause darkness in you. That your true nature is all light, all light. So you say it could turn a paravidya into dry kindling. Oh, there goes my livelihood. But why not bring dharmic livelihood into the picture? Because adharmic livelihood is what's giving people so much trouble. It's why they're sorrowful. It's why they're sinful. It's why they think they're the body, right? So take the fire of intelligence and make it all burn. And then end up with this fire of wisdom. Because the worries of the worryless Atman have to be burned too, right? The brooding of the non-brooding Atman has to be done away with. You see? Do it. There's no reason to hold on to it, no reason to live in it. Yawn at it, laugh at it. Awaken spiritually and stay near this fire of wisdom. And finally, this fuel reduces even wisdom to ashes, to be blown away by the winds of non-dual realization. So there is a good place to end the Avadhut's talk here today on these two verses of, I am the fire of living intelligence that consumes the activities of the actionless Atman. I am the fire of non-dual wisdom that removes the sorrows of the sorrowless Atman. I am the non-dual wisdom that dissolves all bodies of the bodiless Atman. I am pure existence, wisdom, and bliss, as boundless as the sky, infinite like space. Jnanamritam samurasam gaganopamoham. Jnanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham. Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Gyanamurtim Dandvaiti Tangagana Sadrishan Tatmanas Shadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamatchalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam
bhavatitam trigunarahitam, sadgurum tan namami, om shantihi, shantihi, shantihi. We salute the leader of our souls, through whose grace our ignorance is burnt away, who is beyond good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, and all other pairs of opposites. We recognize that one as the only witness to the changing phenomenon of this universe. May we through that grace go beyond darkness and delusion and realize the truth in this very life. Oh, peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto us, peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat.